Mike hesitated. He didn't like taking medication as a rule, and felt that taking supplements such as vitamins were a waste of time. If you had a balanced diet, you shouldn't need vitamins. If you mostly ate fried chicken, on the other hand... No, I won't thanks, he said. I don't really like medication. Jelly looked a bit cross then. But I brought it over here specially, he said, like the trip from the counter to the table was a 5-mile hike or something. And besides, the pill will help you relax before the spa. The what now? Mike said. Thought we were going on the canal. Oh, for God's sake, Mrs. Jelly said. Haven't you filled that bloody thing in yet? Those ducks better not still be hanging about. Mr. Jelly looked a bit sorry for himself. No, dear, the ducks have gone. He looked at Mike and whispered, I'll take you to the canal in a bit, sport. First we need a nice relaxing session in the spa, and perhaps a massage. I do a really nice shoulder rub. Mike was starting to think he'd made a very big mistake. Mike shifted in his seat. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. He did. He wanted very much to be rude. But there is no way I'm letting you give me a massage. He stood up. I want to leave. He started towards the door he'd come through, a door that led back to the church. Mrs. Jelly moved to stand in front of him. You can't go that way, she said, hands on her hips. You have to go through the other door. Mike felt his hands form into fists. He was losing patience. Just move out the way, please, he said, his voice shaking. No, Mrs. Jelly said. Mr. Jelly moved next to her, blocking his path with his girth. Sorry, sport, he said. There's no way you can go through that door. Why the fuck not? Mike shouted. Because we've just had it fumigated, Jelly said. Terrible termite problem. You probably noticed when we came through. Mike looked from one jelly to another. I don't know what the fuck you two are playing at, he said. But if you don't let me through that door, I'm going to have to use physical force. No need for that kind of language, sport, Mr. Jelly said. Mike clenched his teeth and his fists and walked towards the jellies. Move, he said. Look, Jelly said, you really can't leave through that door. I lied about the termites. But there is a pest problem. He looked at Mrs. Jelly as though for approval. She nodded. There's a giant snake who lives in the house, Jelly said, and it's escaped. We think it's gone into the church. Mike shouldered his way past the two jellies. I've had enough of this crap, he said, taking hold of the door handle and twisting it. It came off in his hand. The door remained firmly closed. Mike kicked it. It sounded odd, like it was not made of wood anymore. It sounded as if he'd just kicked a brick wall. And his foot hurt like it had too. Ouch, he said. Ah, said Jelly. I wondered if that new security device would work. Mrs. Jelly smiled. Time to leave through the other door, she said. Mike gulped. Mike knew the jellies were up to something, and this house was fucking weird to say the least. But what choice did he have? If he wanted to leave this madhouse, and he certainly did want that, then it made sense to walk through the only door in the room, and hope that somewhere on the other side was the way out. Mrs. Jelly smiled. After you, dear, she said. Mr. Jelly nodded his head, his fat cheeks wobbling enthusiastically. Go on, sport, open the door. Mike walked over to the door, took a deep breath and opened the door. At first he wasn't sure what he was looking at. The room was kind of strange kind of colour. The word that sprung to mind was cinnamon, but it could have been terracotta. He was no interior designer. The room was long, and there was indeed a canal that ran the length of it. The ceiling was so high up that at first Mike thought there was no ceiling. This room was huge. A gondola awaited them, and he felt Jelly nudge him. Can't we just walk? Mike said. He really didn't want to get into that gondola with the fat man. Not just because he was worried that the boat couldn't hold his weight, but the boat looked kind of narrow, and Mike didn't want Jelly's sweaty blubber rubbing against him. He pointed at the path. Let's take a nice gentle stroll towards the exit, he said, hoping that the path did indeed lead to an exit. Jelly looked disappointed. His wife laughed. Don't worry, she said. Jelly doesn't do boats. Oh, he likes to look at them, but he doesn't enjoy being in them. Get in the boat." Mrs. Jelly's tone seemed more threatening than it had before. Mike swallowed hard and started walking. "I'm not getting in the fucking boat," he said, "and you can't fucking make me." Mrs. Jelly laughed. It was a horrible sound, and it made Mike stop in his tracks. "We'll see about that," she said, and Mike saw her flick a switch on the wall. The lights went out, and Mike's world suddenly flipped upside down.